Hello, and welcome to my multimedia project. When thinking about my multimedia project, I really had no idea what I wanted to do it on. And then throughout our discussions in class, I kind of came across my question of being like, why are these people just perceiving this creature as such a terrible person? And then I realized, I have some background information on the monster and they didn't. So that's how my perception and theirs are different, because we have different background information and experiences. So I took that and I decided to play around with it, and I decided to make it into my multimedia project. Essentially, in our critical theory class, we have discussed that there are obvious different perceptions of the monster. There's Victor's perception, there's the family's perception, and there's most importantly the creature's perception. Everyone is influenced by these perceptions just because of appearance, and the monster just doesn't understand. The monster was abandoned when Victor had created him. The monster was having to learn how to live on his own as a human being. Just by, observing the family through the window, and then when he met the family in person, they were appalled and they ran away screaming. And that just enraged the monster, so he went on a murderous rampage. So I thought to myself, I really enjoy the psychology of the brain. I love knowing why we think we do and why we just live. So that's why I made this my multimedia project. What my multimedia project is going to consist of, it's going to consist of several interviews that I have made with different participants of different age groups and different genders. I'm going to ask them 3 simple things. First, I'm going to ask them to draw what comes to their mind, a simple sketch of a monster. Second, I'm going to have them define in their own words what they believe the definition of a monster is. Third, I'm going to have them tell me just in a few words why they chose to draw it the way they did and why they chose to define it the way they did. After this is all done, I'm going to do another video session like this just by myself, coming to some sort of conclusion as to why we do perceive things the way they do. So, enjoy! So as part of my multimedia project, I wanted to make sure that I put my opinion there as well. So before I interviewed anyone, I did my own sort of interview with myself, I guess, if you will. So that way I could also be contributing to some of this besides just doing my conclusions at the end. So this is my idea of what a monster is. Now that I'm looking at it, it kind of looks like a really friendly monster, which is really weird because we tend to think of monsters as something really negative. For my definition of a monster, I would like to say it is something or someone that does harm to another person or you to make you think of them in a negative way. The reason for the definition is because you come across a lot of people in life, beautiful people, not so beautiful people, and if they're a monster, they're a monster. They all have the same sort of personality, and unfortunately you do meet those kind of people in your life. So I think that sort of reasoning really contributes to why I defined it like that, because I've encountered a lot of people of those types in my life.
Generally, I'd say a monster is something that's not human. So we think about like monsters under the bed or monsters in the closet. They're things that don't actually exist. And when we think about how we talk about human beings as monsters, we're really talking about them because we don't comprehend what they've done. We can't punish something that we don't understand. So we call people monsters so we can try and understand that there is this unhumanness about them. So we can treat people who have committed what we consider monstrous crimes or monstrous acts as other than human, so we can legitimize whatever we want to do with them. And so, when we think about, again, going back to monsters, they're ghosts, they're things that don't really exist that we can't touch, but they're these anxieties and this scaredness that we have, and we know that is intolerable, that being scared is intolerable. And so we try and find real life examples of monsters and then say, oh, I can kill the monster that's under my bed. But in reality, we can never kill the monster. The monster doesn't exist. Well, I drew it the way I did. I wanted to, kind of thinking about, when I think about a monster, something that's hideous, something that's ghostly, something that is silent, think about the reason why the monster under the bed is so frightening is because you can never hear them and you can never see them. And so, I'm not a very good artist, so drawing this monster, I might, rethink some aspects of it, make it bigger, make it wider in particular, sort of this all-consuming kind of force that anxiety has. When you think about that fright of wondering if there's a monster in the closet, it is all-consuming. It captures your attention. So if I had to redraw this, I would draw it in some way that was more indicative of something that would, have me captivated in the negative sense. But, just thinking about why I define the monster the way it is, thinking about anti-death penalty, advocacy, thinking about the way the word circulates in society, that's kind of what has led me to arrive at my definition and the drawing that I did.
I think a monster is something that is scary and not real, and it's like a fictional character, maybe of the imagination, maybe of like a story. I drew it the way I did based on the definition of something that is scary, because I thought that the creature thing I drew with sharp teeth and claws and horns and a tail and googly eyes would be a scary creature, and it's saying roar really loudly. And I feel like that fits my definition pretty well.
Okay, so I have this book. And if you had asked me this, 20 years ago, I would probably have had a different, more of a frightening, scary answer. But with children, I have read this book, and it's a very loving. My monster mama loves me, so let me tell you how I know. And she gives me lizard juice with ice, and it's a very loving book. So to me, and for the kids now, my youngest one, we have the emoji. We'll send like a monster and then a heart, and then the kid. So it's like Monster Mom loves you.
Right.
So it's just a couple emoji pictures, and so the weird thing is that it's actually kind of a joke and and nothing scary about it, and kind of kind of that whole love your brother and it doesn't matter, and as long as they're good, she's a really good mom. So it doesn't matter that she has this three-eyed head. And so another thing too is I really feel like with monsters, with that book in particular, it points out that you really shouldn't judge.
Right.
So, who is anyone to say that that monster is any different than anyone else? And probably the same with Frankenstein. Like, no one should judge him. They really don't until, yeah. So for me, the monster is this loving, caring woman in this book who takes care of her kid, and when the real children come out, they're afraid of the real children, like the children would be afraid. So it's kind of neat. It's cute.
That is interesting. Because in Frankenstein, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the humans see the monster, and they. That's interesting.
So absolutely, because of my children and that book, I don't see it any other way right now. And that's not a cheesy answer. That's like the truth. No. I like it. I because this matches more of who I am.
Right.
More of just like, doesn't matter, just be good. You know what I mean?
that. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I like
So,
that.
Some sort of creature that's very angry and scary and very dangerous looking. It's claws and teeth and it's very grotesque looking, I guess, with the giant ears and stuff.
Good. And then in a few words, why you chose the way you did or why you find it the way you did. So if there's an experience you had or something like that.
I've never really had an experience, but I mean, just from Halloween and all, like, I guess media and the stories growing up with Halloween and whatever, it's always kind of been, like, monsters are these big, angry beings who have, like, a bunch of claws and very rigid and very just mean things, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it.
A monster for me is somebody that has, let's see if I can word this properly, whose appearance or the thought of him provokes fear. And just if I think of a monster, I picture something that scares the heck out of me. So whether it's real or imagined, yeah, I think it's just the one that provokes fear.
Okay.
Well, I think of a monster. Now, I've had nightmares. I know Godzilla, I know Monsters, Inc., the furry monsters. To me, those aren't monsters. Growing up, I watched films, black and white films of Frankenstein, and they scared the heck out of me. Boris Karloff, Dracula, those are the big ones, and the Mummy. But the only one that really, I don't think Dracula is a monster. Okay, I don't know what the term monster means. I mean, there's scary nightmares. King Kong, I've had nightmares of King Kong. But is he a monster? I don't know.
Right.
But to me, there's only one monster. It's Frankenstein. And just to, why? He has human qualities, and he just came at you. Now, also, what I was thinking about this was, is Freddy Krueger, is Jason, are they considered monsters? So to me, no. They're just, scary things and scary ideas. But to me, the one monster is Frankenstein.
So that was my own personal research that I conducted for this project. I think it was really beneficial for me to genuinely ask and interview people of different ages and different genders, just due to the fact that not everyone obviously has the same opinion on things, and everyone has different experiences. We may all go to school, or we may all grow up in the same region of the United States, but that doesn't mean that we're all experiencing the same thing every day with family, friends, personal life, jobs, all that sort of thing. So I thought it was extremely important to just kind of grasp different age groups, different genders, people of different professions, that sort of thing, because it really helped me get a good idea of what I wanted to conclude for this project, because I think having 2 interviews of 2 females or 2 males or 2 21-year-olds and that sort of thing kind of maybe would have made my conclusion just be obvious just because of what they were saying. But by interviewing all of these people, I was able to take all their ideas and kind of put it into one to really feel good about my conclusion to my topic question of what really is a monster. All the interviews were extremely interesting because I had all mostly negative ones, and then I had one positive outlook of the monster, which is very interesting because even I don't necessarily think a monster is anything positive, but that's because I've never had a positive experience with a monster in my life. When I was interviewing someone and they brought this book into the picture after I read it, and it's just such a phenomenal way of looking at monsters on the opposite spectrum of being negative. I'm just going to read a page from it. My monster mama loves me so, let me tell you how I know. And then there's a picture of them hugging. It says, when I wake up, she tweaks my nose, tickles all my pointy toes, combs the cobwebs from my bangs, and makes sure that I brush my fangs. And then there's that. So it's super interesting because it still has all the aspects of what pretty much people drew in my interviews as a monster, you know, kind of creepy looking, 3 eyes, green skin, that sort of thing. But it's making all the aspects like really positively. So my conclusion that I'm coming to is that a monster is one thing and one thing only. A thing. I don't really think I can come to a conclusion where I can say a monster is a positive or a negative object or idea or definition or whatever you want to call it. But what I can conclude to is that no matter what, our experiences are going to influence everything we think, say, feel, everything. So if a child is being brought up with this positive idea of monsters and never sees a scary movie or never reads Frankenstein, they're always going to think a monster is this not attractive looking thing, but a lovely mother to a lovely child. After hearing the positive outcome and interview, I really kind of skewed my vision of what a monster really is. Like, I kind of want to look at it as a positive thing because I feel like that's a little bit easier to sit with. That a monster, yes, is creepy looking, but it can be super loving in the end. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that these research and these interviews opened up my mind to a lot of different things. It got me to be able to listen to other people's opinions and take them and incorporate them from what I believe and put them all together kind of in this soup pot, if you will, and come out with a conclusion that it's kind of interesting that, hey, monsters are scary, yeah, but are they really that bad? Or are we just making them out to bad? Or is just media making them out to be bad? Or is just, you know, stereotypical views of a monster, is that just what makes it bad?